Please, we will give the photographers just 2 minutes to take all of your photographs, then you retire, and then we commence the program.
Exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to hear from our candidates the way forward and the how they are going to transform the Liberian economy, the education and health. All these issues are going to be key as we go through these debates.
Okay.
Guys are still taking photos.
Photographers, please
Photographers
retire.
are still taking photos. And sitting side by side is Mr. Wood.
Photographers, please retire. The professional one, the cell phone ones, the iPad.
Interesting, and the guys are having friendly conversations here. I wish you could have the view of the both gentlemen. I wouldn't mind if they could just say hi to you out in the diaspora. So, Mr. Chairman, could you just say how you are on KNTV Live?
Well, this is a historic moment. I think this further
Thank you very much,
cement our country, democracy. I think you see me sitting here with the chairman of the Unity Party.
It's so interesting.
It's interesting. It's an interesting moment.
Mr. Chairman, can you say how you feel today having this kind of conversation?
This is Liberia coming together, and this is more important. The politics aside, one country, honor God with liberty and justice for all. I think this is more fulfilling.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having this party chairman being very friendly. So we will not turn to the podium. We will not turn to the podium to see what is happening now on the podium. So we can now join the podium and see exactly what is happening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, 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 quiet you, please. Okay, thank you very much. On behalf of the Deepening Democracy Coalition, we want to welcome the 4 candidates who have turned out to grace this occasion. And we want to welcome all Liberians, our foreign partners, who have also joined us in this hall, and those listening by radio, watching by television, or watching via the social media. We want to welcome you to this all-important occasion. We will attempt to give you a background about the organizers of this program, the Deepening Democracy Coalition. The Deepening Democracy Coalition, the organizers of this program, brings to the fold the following key local organizations: the Press Union of Liberia, the Liberia Media Center, the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Liberia Media Women Action Committee, and the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. The Deepening Democracy Coalition, established about a year ago, seeks to ensure that in 2017, Liberia holds a national elections that will be considered not only free, fair, and transparent, but also issues-driven and gender-inclusive. Inherent to this task is a competent and vibrant media culture that is accessible and inclusive, an increased awareness of the electoral process through civic education, and that political discourse is allowed to foster in a favorable environment. The 2017 election is another important milestone of the country's 170 years whole democratic process. It marks the third elections since the conclusion of the country's peace process in 2005, and the first since the country's economic development and public health systems were severely compromised by the Ebola epidemic. Deepening democracy in Liberia, as envisioned by the coalition, means creating the conditions for citizens to be adequately informed of their roles, rights, and responsibilities, as well as have a better understanding of key issues that affect their lives. The DDC believes that there has been a systematic failure in scrutinizing and analyzing candidates and political parties' policies and platforms and disseminating them to the public. The DDC wants to empower and support the media and civil society to foster popular participation and ensure that stakeholders, especially the electors, have a better comprehension and appreciation of the entire electoral process in 2017. What the DDC wants to do. We want to deepen democracy and foster informed citizens' participation in the 2017 presidential and legislative elections through effective reporting, monitoring, advocacy, debates, and civic education. In this regard, we are focused on building a platform that will ensure these elections are issues-focused, gender-inclusive, and representative. Other components of the DDC engagement include enhanced journalistic standards, integrity and professionalism so that members of the media exhibit best practices in reporting impartially, accurately, and objectively. Establishment of a media monitoring unit to monitor the media on their professionalism and standards as they cover the elections. Elections Reporters Network, journalists trained by the DCC will form part of the Elections Reporters Network that has been activated in all the 15 counties to follow the progress of and report on the latest electoral developments and key campaign issues of presidential candidates. Promoting electoral public discourse. The DDC recognizes that public discourse is one of the fundamental rights associated with democratic processes. It allows the healthy interchange of ideas between candidates and provides an opportunity for voters to properly vet candidates. An impetus of acquiring such a healthy exchange is the media providing a transparent platform for debates and participation in discussion. It is through debates that voters get a better understanding of the candidates' manifestos and positions on major issues. The DDC is spearheading a number of presidential debates, providing an accessible and visible podium to the political actors. We appreciate the support from the Open Society Foundation through its West Africa subsidiary, the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, OSIWA, to the work of the DDC. It has indeed been a tiring yet rewarding experience, being engaged for the last 30 days with the various political parties in planning this debate. We met with the leaderships of most of the political parties, all of which embraced the concept of the debate and pledged their commitments to participate. We are exceptionally grateful for the presence of the 4 out of the 6 invited. We look forward to the participation in future debates of those who are not available today to participate in this debate. At this juncture, I will invite to the podium the head of OSIWA Liberia, Master Quentin, who will make a brief remarks on behalf of the sponsors of this program.
Good afternoon to all. Our distinguished presidential candidates, foreign friends, national leaders, Liberians, one and all. We are here again, getting ready to perform our sacred democratic responsibilities as citizens of Mama Liberia, a home of glorious liberty by God's command. This electoral cycle is an epoch-making one as we look forward to witnessing a peaceful transition of power through the ballot box after the October 10th, 2017 elections. It is therefore our civic responsibility to engage our aspiring duty bearers about their plans for our beloved country and how they intend to govern. Far too long, elaborate and lofty plans have been prepared with very little or no interrogation by the citizens and, of course, the electorate. We now have the golden opportunity, and we must use it and use it wisely. Osiwa's commitment to supporting the presidential debate marks a turning point in this nation's history as we bring our presidential aspirants to the people. We are giving the people of Liberia the opportunity to know, yes, to demand answers to the how and not just the what. Our leaders owe it to us all as citizens, and we must make it happen constructively. Our democracy has grown, but we need to groom and nurture it further until it reaches maturity. We need to get to the next level where issues and policies are deliberated upon and not just about who was here or who came later or whose mother or father laid what foundation. It is about what we should expect and hold our leaders to. As Rayhan Sonis put it, debate forums will be able to form a powerful ground for understanding of efficient citizenship and of functioning democracy, or a powerful democracy. For such forums are primarily those that bear the traces of how people wish to be governed in the context of preferences and expectations that have been voiced. Holding public debates on issues that concern society will also help creation of an open, transparent, and accountable administration. The risk of power abuse will be reduced to a minimum in an administration which is constantly supervised and held accountable through public debates. While our Constitution and laws of the land provide laws that govern us all as Liberians, the reintroduction of the debate compels us all to be tolerant and voice out our differences and not resort to hate speech and divisive or abusive language. In essence, we should agree to disagree. That's the beauty of democracy. Let us all nurture this fledgling democracy and allow our institutions to work for us. We should not be seen to be undermining what we should promote and enhance. Through such polite confrontational engagements, the electorate will be given the opportunity to know the values and beliefs of the candidates, as well as their ability to articulate their thoughts. It gives us the opportunity to know our leaders well, or even better. Their temperament and tolerance in dealing with divisive issues are key elements. They must be in a position to leverage support and persuade opposing parties. We at the Open Society Initiative for West Africa and the bigger OSF family are committed to promoting open society values that promote issue-based campaigns, promote access to information and freedom of expression, as well as accountable governance where corruption is on the wane. We will continue to support both the demand and supply sides of the aisle by contributing to the strengthening of Liberia's democracy. We hope this debate will play a significant role in the political process and offer a valuable opportunity to hear candidates challenge one another on their policies and temperament. We sincerely hope these debates will become a standard part of our electoral process. Let me end by congratulating President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's government for giving us all and the general electorate the space to operate freely, and hope that the NEC and other institutions such as the police and other law enforcement bodies continue to give the support required to deliver their mandates during this electoral period. Special thanks to the aspirants for honoring the invitation to this debate, and best wishes at the ballot box. Thanks again to the Deepening Democracy Coalition for organizing, for the moderators who we hope will do a splendid job, and to everyone who took off their time to come and witness this program. Long live Liberia, happy land. This glorious land of liberty shall long be ours.
Thank you very much, Massa. And the Deepening Democracy Coalition is partnering with the Liberia Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Liberia Institute of Tax Practitioners. And we will call on a representative from the two groups, one representative of the two groups who will make a brief presentation to the candidates and make a brief remark. Who is the representative?
Good afternoon, honorable presidential candidates, and good afternoon to all. During last month's tax symposium, our president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, had remarked that donor funding to this country is about 142% of our own domestic resource mobilization. We have to look at our tax laws. We have to look at our tax laws and be able to mobilize our resources, our local resources, to be able to meet the budget deficit. The Liberian Institute of Tax Practitioners and the Liberian, in collaboration with the Liberian Institute of Certified Public Accountants, have come together and we have put a series of questions together, a questionnaire together, that we will have to present to the candidates, that they will have to take away with them, and then to report to us at a later date. I hope candidates, you will be able to do that for us, because we really want to know what you think about doing these things and how you're going to do it. So the questionnaire is a yes or no answer, and there's a column also there for comments. So if you wish to make comments after you have your yes or no answer, you may likely do that. Some of the questions may be sounding too technical for you or something. We'll make ourselves available. In the documentation, we do have our contacts, and at any time that you will need us for us to explain certain issues to you, we will make ourselves available. Thank you. At this point, I will want to distribute the packages to the presidential candidates. The All Liberian Party
Okay, thank you very much. The Liberia Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Liberia Institute of Tax Practitioners. Before I leave this podium, let me quickly provide you with a brief bio of each of the three respectable moderators for today's event. 1. He works for Unmail Radio as a radio producer. He formerly worked for the Duco Broadcasting Corporation DC 101 as Director of News. He has over 15 years experience as a broadcast journalist. He holds a BA degree in mass communication. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the podium or the stage with a round of applause, journalist Raymond Zabi. Please stand and meet the crowd. Thank you. The second moderator, he is a broadcast journalist and radio talk show host. He currently works for Capital FM Radio. He is the representative in Liberia for the news website allafrica.com. He holds a BA degree and a Master of Public Administration degree in Public Sector Management. Let's welcome journalist Boyka Fofana of Capital FM. She worked for the Daily Observer newspaper in the 1980s. She was the first Liberian female journalist to cover the Civil War from behind the then rebel lines. She worked in Liberia for the International Research and Exchange Board, IREX, as senior media specialist for 4 years. She currently works for the USAID-funded Liberia Media Development Program. The LMD is currently being implemented by Internews. She has a wealth of experience as a journalist and media development specialist in Liberia and the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, Liberians across the country monitoring via radio, join me as we welcome our lead moderator for today's presidential debate, Madame Maureen Sie of Internews. So we now turn over the floor to the moderators. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you to this debate. I think it's a good exercise in our young democracy. I know many of you are excited about this event, but we just have a few ground rules to make sure that this goes on smoothly, to make sure that the Liberian people and people all across the world truly enjoy this exercise. So to the audience, I know there are some party supporters here. I know you're very excited to see your candidates here. But I beg of you, please, we are going to keep all of our applauses and our jeering for the end of the debate. Please, there will be no booing. We ask that you please be respectful of the candidates and their supporters. And we have the police here, and they're going to be monitoring for any kind of disruption. So I beg of you, please conduct yourselves accordingly. And I would just like to welcome the candidates who showed up here today. I like people who show up when asked. I think your presence here today is an indication of your commitment to this process. I just want to remind you of a few ground rules. We were supposed to do a little lottery to determine who goes first, but that didn't happen. But we're going to call you based on the order in which you are seated from my left. Okay? So each of you will get 4 minutes to make brief introductory remarks. And then after that, we will go into the question and answer. So the last person who would do the introductory remarks will not get the first question. We'll go back to the second person. Okay? You got that? Okay, thank you. The questions that we'll be asking you today were drawn from 6 thematic areas, which we informed you about this in our communication. So 1, we have questions on the economy. We'll have questions on the security and the rule of law sector. We'll have questions on peace and reconciliation. We'll have questions on agriculture. We'll have questions on youth empowerment and development. And we'll have questions on anti-corruption. So your introduction is going to be 4 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes to answer the question, and you'll have 1 minute for the follow-up. And at the end, you will have 3 minutes to make closing remarks. Thank you. So we'll first ask Mr. Ure to introduce himself, make his brief opening remark. Please go to the podium there. And, okay, please pay attention to the timekeeping machine over there, and we'll alert you when your time is up. So just watch the board as you speak. Thank you.
The moderator, Liberians, and foreign guests present here, my colleagues, we bring you greetings from the All-Liberian Party. Today is a good day for Liberia, that we all can be in this hall attending what I consider a national debate. As we all know, from 1980 to today's date, we all have witnessed our country, Liberia, degenerating to its present status. Yes, along the way, we have had some very positive things happening in Liberia. We have seen some growth, but on the overall, Liberia has deteriorated. Economically, socially, and internationally. We come to you today begging your indulgence as we tell you our views on how we can move our country forward. As you have probably seen all over Monrovia and the country, we are endeavoring to get Liberia working again. The question is, how can we as a people get Liberia working again? We have to get the economics of our country, the wheel spinning again. We have to get our people reconciled again. We have to get our people involved in governance. We have to take governance from Monrovia by a selective few and take it back to the people. We need to take the resources of our country from being under a few people, decisions being made by a few people, and take it to the people. We believe the involvement of the entire Liberia and not a selected few will carry us a long way in developing our country. We also want to let you know that our country depends on each and every Liberian, irrespective of who you are, what religious background you come from, what tribe you come from. What must unite us as a people is that we are Liberians, and we must start thinking forward. We must leave our dark past behind us, and we must move our country forward. Our country must grow. We as a people must grow. We must change our attitudes. We must change our ways, because if we don't, we will remain where we are. Liberia is depending on each and every one of us, and we must not continue to let the people of Liberia down, nor must we let ourselves down. Liberia must come before each and every one of us, and we must remember the people outside of Monrovia. Liberia is not Monrovia. Liberia is out there. And we must continue the process of negotiation, the process of speaking to one another, the process of engaging one another to ensure that we are all united and ready to move Liberia forward. I thank you.
Okay, now, first sector that, oh, sorry. We'll have the next, continue with our introduction, sorry.
Thank you very much. We want to thank all of the organizers of this debate. I come to this debate this morning against many suggestions from people and partisans and key supporters who asked me not to appear. But I'm here for several reasons, among which are my respect for anything that is important to the Liberians in and out of government. It shows their love and concern for their country. Liberians are aware of the challenges they face in and outside their country and are now demanding that our country give them the opportunity to actively participate and contribute to the rebuilding of our country. That a responsible government in place, one requisite leadership that is capable, tested administratively, and one with knowledge and experience and integrity to manage our resources and be accountable to them. Let me emphasize here that we are an African country with a huge percentage of our people in the rural communities, illiterate society, unemployed youth needing quality education, technical skills for employment. I graduated from the university, and the first assignment I took was outside the country, something that was not normal in those days. For believe that once you receive Monrovia, they forget about you. This gave me the opportunity to understand the life the people live outside Monrovia, what the people think about their lives and their development. And I said to myself these few days that it is about time that we think Liberia, love Liberia, and build Liberia. We have done a lot. Our youth, our women, sit in the market in squalor. We see that. When I go up country, I look at different things. I look at the lives of the people, the quality of life they're living. It is not talking, it's about action. And this is the experience that I have. So Liberians, today, we thank you for giving us this opportunity because we should go beyond rhetoric and give to our Liberians what they deserve. Thank you very much.
Please control the clapping. You have a lot of time for that. Thank you, Vice President Boyka. Mr. Cummings, can you move to the podium for your 4-minute introduction?
Thank you, and good afternoon. To the organizers of the program, the Deepening Democracy Coalition, to the moderators, to my fellow aspirants for leadership of our country, it's my honor to be here with you this afternoon. You know, about 3 weeks ago, Liberia celebrated 170 years of independence, the oldest republic in Africa. Yet, we are amongst the least developed countries on our continent, and indeed among the least developed countries in the world. My fellow Liberians, we have to ask ourselves some very hard questions. Why do almost 60% of our people live below the poverty line? Why is our per capita income of $297 the third lowest in the world? And I could go on and on. There are two fundamental truths that we have to think about as Liberians. One, if you keep doing the same things, you will not get different results. If you keep doing the same things, you will not get different results. The other fundamental truth is that the best predictor of future performance and future behavior is past performance and past behavior. And as Liberians go to the poll on October 10th, I ask you to keep those two truths in mind and answer some of these hard questions about why we are where we are after 170 years. I have been very blessed in life, blessed to be a Liberian, blessed to have gone to demonstration school, CABA, Cuttington, worked at LBDI, but also blessed to have managed large, complex organizations, managed financials much bigger than our countries, and consistently deliver results, consistently was held accountable, created jobs for people across the world. And I ask you, as we look forward, as we have this debate, let's look at who will answer the fundamental questions, who will go below the surface, who will understand the economics of our country, who will focus on the how we can change our country. And that involves bringing all Liberians together. We call it hearts and minds. That involves finding the money It will require funds, money to do the things we need to do. It will require a government of inclusion. It will require growing the private sector and leveraging technology. So my fellow Liberians, this is what we offer you. This is what we want you to think about. We have to do some things differently if we want a different country. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Brumskin, please head to the podium, please.
Thank you so much to the Deepening Democratic Coalition, the Moderators, the people of Painesville for allowing us the use of this hall. Thanks to Ben, to Joe, to Alex, they're all my friends, for joining me today in presenting our views to our people. Each and every one of us have something to say about what we will do for this country. But I'd like to share my vision with you during the next hour or so, through the eyes and the condition of an old lady who I met in a village in Nimba. Her husband predeceased her. She had no children. But for the mercy of her neighbors, she would go to bed hungry every night. That lady's condition must be changed if we are to be a country and a nation that cares for our people. And then I speak of the lady whose husband told me her story about her dying in childbirth because they had to walk several hours to the nearest clinic to get medical care. That too must change. I tell you the stories of the young men on the street who are called Zogos, who we must take and bring into society. No Liberian will be abandoned under a Brumskin-Conway administration. I talk of young people in Liberia who graduate from high schools, some of them with honors, yet and still they fail LU's entrance exam. There's something fundamentally wrong with the education system of this country that we intend to change. I talk about the businesswoman who took a loan from the commercial bank at the interest rate of 20%, went to China, brought goods to sell at a profit margin less than 7%. She could not pay the loan. We must help that woman. We must help Liberian businesses for them to move forward. It is time to change this country. I will talk about reconciling this country, bringing our people together, not tearing them apart. I will talk about those values that made Liberia strong, that once made us a good people. Family values, values of being our brothers' keepers, our sister keepers. It's time that once again, Liberians can care for each other. I talk about the infrastructure that need to be rebuilt because of my experience traveling into the Southeast the other day. Many will say some similar things, but really realize it can only happen if it is grounded on the integrity of the vision bearer. And the integrity that I speak of is not simply the absence of corruption, but the integrity to say, yes, I am qualified to run to be president of Liberia. I meet the constitutional requirement. I have the relevant experience in government. I've been in there. I came out clean with my reputation intact. That's what I bring to the Liberian people. I thank you.
Thank you to our aspirants. for your introductory remarks. We are now to our questions. Sector will be the economy. And because of the order in which we have organized these debates, Vice President Boyka will be the first to answer the question, since Mr. Yuri was the first for the introductory remarks. Yes, you have to go to the podium. So the question is, many Liberians live below the poverty line. What specific measures are you going to put in place to address this issue? And how will you fund a poverty reduction program? You have 3 minutes to answer the question.
You know, when people ask me, what are your priorities for this country? I say to them, number 1, roads, number 2, roads, number 3, roads. There's no way we're going to expand the economy of this country when it's lacking. Lofa County is supposed to be the breadbasket of this country. How do you get the food here? You go to Lofa, you can buy bananas almost for little or nothing. How do they get here? Unless we open up this country, we can go to the southeast on a good road. We can go to the northwest on a good road, the central part of this country. We're not going to expand the economy of this country. When a job that is supposed to be done in 2 days takes you a week, you cannot build an economy. You cannot support an economy and build a society. All of the developing countries, they're not developed because they have ships and airplanes. It's because of accessibility. You got to get there. We have to open the country up. The young people will get jobs. Tourism will be an attraction here. We can't do that sitting in Monrovia and driving. Take a typical example where we to have an invading army coming from Banga. Where do you go? In the sea? Because you have nowhere to go. The opportunities are here. We don't have to look elsewhere. We cannot be a country all the time we thanking and begging our partners. The resources are here. We must invest in them, improving them, give our people a job, give them opportunity to have clean drinking water and quality education. My priority number 1 is road. We open up this country, we open up opportunities. The resources are there, we can get them. We need accountability, we need honesty. We don't just mean people talking about it, live it. In all my working life, I have lived a transparent life. We managed operations that provided job here, and we gave job to the people because of our integrity. You can say what you may, LPMC was a success. When I managed LPMC, it provided job for people. It provided opportunities for people. Open up the country and open up the economy of this country. You will see jobs created. Thank you.
Okay, some will argue that, cynics will say you've been the vice president for almost 12 years. You could have had, you had the opportunity to do exactly what you're talking about. And
thank you very much.
What will be your response, yeah?
The vice president, and I am telling you that you put a race car in the garage and you say you want for that car to be proven. Put the race car on the track. A vice president is a vice president. You know very well what a vice president is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice President. I beg y'all. I want your foot. Please, please, please. Please, 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 please. I beg. Please, please. Cummings, would you head to the podium? And the question is, many Liberians live below the poverty line. What specific measures are you going to put in place to address this issue? And how will you fund a poverty reduction program? Thank you.
The primary way that we will alleviate the challenges our people face every day is first by investing in infrastructure, meaning investing in power, electricity, yes, roads, but also water. And we, an ANC-led administration, will privatize infrastructure because we believe that's the fastest way to generate economic growth and economic activity. We will also make sure that Liberians are put front and center of all of our priorities and our efforts. We will ensure that our activities go beyond Monrovia, go beyond Macerata County, but touches on all Liberians in every part of our country. We will invest in education because the long-term solution to alleviating poverty is by educating and training our people. And that's something we'll focus on. At the end of the day, though, we also have to find the money to do all of these things because otherwise it's just talk. And so we are going to go after waste in government. We're going to go after corruption in government. We're going to make different choices in terms of how we invest those dollars. Because without those resources, we will not be able to eliminate the poverty in our country. I was coming from Tapeta to Saclay, and I was stuck on the roads. And I was fortunate to meet a cross-section of Liberians. And I can say to you, the stories told was heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. And what's even more profound for me is the fact I know we can do better. I know as a people, we deserve better. And I know if we get out of our own way, if we revisit our rules and regulations and simplify things, if we put Liberians first, we can change our country. We can alleviate poverty. And the way to fund it is to go after waste, go after corruption, to get more benefit from our natural resources and redirect those things to the things that matter to the Liberian people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. You may have your seat. Could you please head to the podium? Okay. The same question, just give us 1 second so we can get the time already. But the question is, many Liberians live below the poverty line. What specific measures are you going to put in place to address this issue? And how will you fund a poverty reduction program?
Firstly, Maureen, I do not subscribe to poverty reduction. I believe in poverty alleviation. There is no reason to say to Liberians, you cannot afford a bag of rice, I will give you a cup of rice. No. Our government will ensure that Liberians are able to make farms grow rice sufficient for them to eat and be able to sell bags of rice, helping to pull themselves out of poverty. In the short run, we would use public procurement. The government of Liberia spends about $157 million a year on purchasing goods and services. I would want to see the lion's share of that money going to Liberians. It would help to put Liberians in business, put put Liberia in charge of trade and commerce in this country, develop a middle class, and alleviate poverty in this country. We'll also use the agriculture sector, where the bulk of our people live, as subsistence farmers. Our challenge as a government would be to transition them from subsistence farming to commercial farming, creating the environment where Liberian citizens can establish the corporate vehicles that will connect the farm to the market. And we can thereafter look back at history. And our children in the future will judge us to say that the Liberty Party government did something about their plight. And therefore, poverty is alleviated from our country. I still got time? Oh, okay.
What do you make of the Salih's administration various strategies to reduce poverty?
Well, you know, it's a question I think you probably should ask the vice president, but we already know his answer. The vice president said that he was just sitting down there, not doing anything. What the vice president has said to us today is that he received pay from taxpayer dollars over a period of 12 years, and he was doing nothing because he was tied somewhere else and not on the racetrack. Now, what we need, and I commit to the Liberian people, Harrison Conway, as my vice president, will not be locked up in a room. He will be a partner. He will be a cabinet minister. He will be there when we run this country together as partners. Okay? They have done, President Salih, with the assistance of development partners, have put forth a lot of policies. The problem has been and continue to be the political will to implement those policies. And that's what I bring to the table. My talk is not empty. I've been in government before. I've done it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bromskin. Mr. Ure, would you please head to the podium? Again, it's the same question. Many Liberians live below the poverty line. What specific measures are you going to put in place to address this issue? And how will you fund a poverty reduction program?
Not only do a lot of Liberians live below the poverty level, but most international organizations have ranked Liberia as one of the poorest nations in the world. This is no joke, and it requires educated, experienced, and committed people to solve this problem. As an economist, a planner, and an accomplished businessman, I feel I can solve this problem. Liberia must move forward. We must get the wheel, the economic wheel, turning again. We must make our economy agro-based. We must support it with industry. We must create mini industry that will support the larger ones and get the economy moving again. And how will I do it? I will reopen the Agricultural Cooperative and Development Bank. Well, small farmers, poor people can once again go and get money and start their lives over. I will also reopen the National Housing Bank, where poor people can go and get loans and be able to build decent places to live. I will put more money into the people's pocket. Give them purchasing power. And we must never listen to promises again in Liberia. We must be able to evaluate each individual based on what they have done to determine whether or not we can give our country to them to manage again. We need a good manager. Our people are deeply troubled. We are in a Mahoran situation. Our people are destitute. They need leadership. They need money. And they need new vision. And we provide all of that for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are moving to the next question, and Boyka is going to be.
Yeah, our next question goes to the ANC's political leader, Mr. Alexander Cummins. Many estimates have said that, have pointed out that our budget deficit hover around 8.5%. This deficit, as you know, affects government operations. What specific plans do you have to address the repeated budget deficits so that the government runs smoothly?
Thank you for that question. I like to think about things in the sense that there are things you can control, you have absolute control over, and there are things you can influence, and we have to do both. The things we have absolute control over to get at the budget deficit, Boykai, is addressing the waste in government. And I will give you some specific example because we can stop that, we can control that. We have to look at our procurement practices and are we paying fair value for what the government procures? Can we save some money there? Do we buy too many cars, too many expensive cars for government officials? Do we have too many people traveling in the wrong class of travel? These are all examples of what I call waste that we can curtail to reduce the deficit. Then there's a lot of seepage, rent-seeking, corruption that we have to go after. Because if we go after those things, we can redeploy those funds and reduce our deficit. Then we have to look at the revenue side of the equation. Can we get more from our natural resources? Are there more natural resources that we can take advantage of? Again, to reduce the need to borrow. And we need to reinvest those dollars into productive projects, into creating jobs for our people. Yes, into funding agriculture for our people, into training and developing our young people. We need to reduce the salaries of the people at the top end of government and pay the people that actually do work more money. We need to pay teachers, civil servants, police officers, soldiers, healthcare workers. If doing that by itself will be economically stimulating, if you take the money out of the hands of a few and put it into the hands of many, it will stimulate this economy and you'll begin to reduce the need for fraud. So those are things that are very specific. Those are things that we're not dependent on others to do. It will take the political will to do those things, and I believe we can and must do those things if we're going to grow this economy of our country. Thank you.
Councillor Bronsky? The question again. Many estimates, have put it that our budget deficit hover around 8.5%. This deficit, as you know, affects government operations. What specific plans do you have to address the repeated budget deficit so that the government runs smoothly?
Baga, while we believe in fiscal discipline, a budget deficit is not necessarily a bad thing. There will be times when we will need to provide for the welfare of Liberians, and the revenue just may not be there, and we have to do deficit financing. But there must be discipline. Now, here what we need to start with is to reverse the flow of revenue. Today, the President's office, the Vice President's office, the Speaker's office, the President pro tempore office, the members of the Senate, the members of the House of Representatives, they take the lion's share of revenue of this country here. make me president of this country, and we're going to reverse that. Harrison, my running mate, and I have agreed that we're going to cut our salaries by 30%, create a trust fund for the education of our children. We're going to challenge the members of the legislature to do the same thing. All those appointed by me in the executive branch, their salaries will be reduced. I want to see a civil servant making more than $10,000 Liberian dollars a month. I want to see teachers making a livable wage. We need not do that by increasing the budget deficit. We can do that by reducing the salaries of the people at the top level of government. But then also, we need to expand the economic base, the tax base, if you will. Today, quite a bit of money comprising gross domestic product that is still not coming into the revenue system because government has not devised a scheme how to reach out to our brothers and sisters in the non-monetary sector of the economy. We need to reach out to them. We need to expand the economic base by investing in the agriculture sector of this country, diversifying our economy, empowering Liberians so that they become middle-class people and that our country will be able to move forward.
One is, what do you mean when you say a budget deficit is not necessarily a bad thing? I want you to further explain, expand on that a bit. Another thing is, how are you going to ensure, you talked about challenging lawmakers to reduce their salaries. We know there's been a history with that, and we know how that went. How are you going to ensure that is done?
Certainly the use of the bullet pulpit. As the president of this nation, I will talk directly to the Liberian people. I will let them know. For example, District 5 in Margibi, where the speaker comes from. I will say to the people, this is how much money goes into his office budget. Look at how much money goes into hospital, medical care. Look how much money goes into education in Margibi, and challenge him to reduce his office appropriation so that we can put our people first. This is the time and Liberty Party intend to usher in a new era for real change in our country. On the issue of budget deficit, as I said, there will be development projects that might need to be undertaken, for which you may not be able to generate the resource immediately. Everybody, you, myself, we all borrow money. The point of the matter is that we must be disciplined and make sure that there is not unnecessary overrun. If there's deficit financing, that money should not find its ways in the pockets of the big shots of this country. It will be appropriated for the use of our people. And that's what we intend to do, the Liberty Party, when we granted power in this country by the Liberian people at the grace of God. You know, there's so much to do in our country. Our people deserve more. Our people should mean more to us. It's time. Our people get tired waiting. They waited too long on empty promises made by people who do not have the political experience or the background in government. People that you can't trust. How you can trust me if I say something if I haven't been tested before? I've been tested, I've proven, and I'm ready to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Benanayuri? The question again is, some estimates have put the budget deficit at about 8.5% of the GDP. This deficit, as you know, affects the operations of government. What specific plans do you have to address the repeated budget deficit so that the government runs smoothly?
You know, the whole process of budgeting is a planning phenomenon. And we have noticed over the years the need for a planning ministry. If the budget is not done professionally And realistically, you will always have a deficit. If you don't have the requisite skills and experience in preparing the budget, you will have a deficit. I will lobby with the legislative branch of government to ensure that the Ministry of Planning and Development be recreated. Because the Ministry of Planning and Development is the heart of the country, especially coming out of a civil war and in the instance where the country is in the situation it's in today. We have to have qualified, experienced people to plan the future of our country. I, Benoni Ure, as president of this country, will immediately accept a 50% reduction in my salary. And I expect that the legislative, the judiciary, and all other branches of government will do likewise if they love and care about the people of Liberia. And this money can be redirected to another source. But most importantly, we have deficit because we believe, and meaning no harm to this government, that this government and many other governments appear to be too business unfriendly. One must create an enabling environment where people will come, invest in this country, and don't be harassed. Increasing taxes does not necessarily give you revenue, but one has to create the environment where people will come freely and invest in this country. And we will continue to have budget deficits until these things are treated. So, in addition to what I said, I'd like to ask that all the monies generated from the reduction in salary, I want you to know that 80% of our budget is recurring expenses. How can we ever develop our country when 80% of it is on recurring expenses? It's strange to the world. Almost every growing country in this world will take at least 60% of her budget for development and not on recurring expenses. I thank you.
So, you talked about having the requisite skills as a means of avoiding budget deficit. I mean, we've had like 4 or 5 stewards of our economy, the Ministry of Finance, since President Sirleaf became president. I think one of them is even in this room. But is that an indication? I mean, were you implying that we have had unqualified people handling the budget?
Certainly not. We have had some of the brightest young people in our country, people that I'm proud of as a Liberian. But I'm saying we need people with experience. We need people with experience. And I also call for the creation of the Ministry of Planning and Development. It's a difficult task. Look, planning, I am a planner. I got my master's degree in planning from the University of Southern California. And it was a difficult degree. It was a difficult degree. And it requires a lot. And it's true that we had very bright young people in the Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Finance, Planning and Development, but there's a need to have experienced people that will guide our young, very talented and educated and smart people. And then there's a need to separate the two institutions. Planning, coming out of a civil war, is the most important ministry. In addition to that, the Ministry of Rural Development, I listened to our older brother, the Vice President, talking about roads. We must create a Ministry of Rural Development. It's unfair for all the resources to be centered in Monrovia. It must go to the rural area.
Vice President Borkai? Some estimates, the question again, some estimates have put the budget deficit at about 8.5% of the GDP. This deficit, as you know, affects the operations of government. What specific plans do you have to address the repeated budget deficits so that the government runs smoothly?
I think my government will insist on a balanced budget. If we lack fiscal discipline, spending out of budget is irresponsible. And you know very well, I think we too donor dependent. Everything we want must come from the donors. I have always said an overprotected child cannot be self-reliant. Liberians have the resources. We should use those resources wisely. We don't have to go to people to look for money if we manage our resources well. I'm happy that my counterparts, they always calling my name when they speak, experience. Thank you very much for addressing me, because that's what I have. The experience, we've been in it. We don't just talk on issues. We know that if we have fiscal discipline, if we manage our budget well, and make sure that we just spend that which we have, we will avoid all of the problems that we have with excesses. And I know we can do it. We have the competence, but we must have the desire and the determination to do those things that are right. What we don't have is the determination to do the right things. Excuses cannot help us. We need to spend our money wisely. We're talking about people in government. You only change the rules when you are in the game. Many people are being in the game. They didn't change the rules. You change the rules when you are in the game. Now after that, you tell people what to do. All of us are serving government. But what we need is the discipline to make sure that we spend that which we have. Taxes are not going to help. We must have fiscal discipline to be able to make sure that our budget is balanced. A balanced budget must be insisted upon. That means your revenue and your expenditure must be in place. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice President, I want to make a follow-up question, please. You just stated that we lack fiscal discipline in this country. Are you indicating that this government that you are part of is corporate to fiscal indiscipline?
A government, one of the things that people think about government is unity party. We are the only country who have 21 parties, all of them represented in government. So when you're talking about discipline, it's all of us. The Liberty Party is there, the CDC is there, everybody is there. All of us are there, and they all decide how to spend the money. So we all have to ask ourselves, have we been responsible enough? Have we been responsible enough? It's not Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, it's the government. So ask all of us, have we been responsible?
You also talked about spending out of budget is irresponsible. Is that the case that's happening now?
I am saying that if we have had a budget that we stick to, and that we know that we don't have the resources and we spend, it's irresponsible to spend out of money that you don't have. Unless you have a legitimate reason, like my counterpart said, that you can have excess in budget. But I believe we can keep our eyes on our income and our expenditure and live within that with discipline.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President.
All right, we'll now take the final question on our economy. Mr. Bromsky, can you move to the podium, please? The majority of Liberia's budget Can we have your attention, please? Thank you. The majority of Liberia's budget is said to be spent on the recurring costs of running the government, especially regarding the payment of salaries. If you have the opportunity to go to the executive mansion, what measures will you propose to rein in the running, especially with the running of the government regarding this salary payment?
Well, I think I partly answered that question earlier when I talked about the reduction of salaries of the top few people. Because you see, this recurring expenses, it's not by the guys at the bottom of the scale. It's about those guys at the top. Okay? So we start by reducing salaries at the top and make sure that we are careful with how we purchase things on behalf of government. The Sally Barker administration, starting 2006, spent millions of dollars every year purchasing vehicles. Not one time they can tell you, say, when vehicles that were purchased and depreciated was sold and the salvage value was reclaimed and placed in government revenue. So what we've been doing, spending money on vehicles for the big shots. After the vehicle are said to have depreciated, they take them and government buy new vehicles for them. Those are the things that we will stop. Look at gasoline fuel, for example. You got all of these big shots receiving gas slips, totaling millions and millions of dollars. There is no audit. The legislature presided over by the Speaker cannot tell you when last they were audited. They receive millions and millions of dollars in gas slip. That's going to stop. That's going to stop. I would like to have government gas distribution centralized, where instead of giving gas slips, people can go to gas station. You go there, you take your vehicle, you take the mileage of the vehicle. They give you 10 gallons of gas. We know that 10 gallons of gas will take the vehicle's X number of miles. You're coming back. Before you reach X number of miles, you're not going to get the gas. Okay? Those are small, simple means by which we can cut down the recurring expenses of government. But since I still got time, let me talk to Joe's issue about having experience. You know, so experience is not enough. Your experience must be good experience. Okay? I serve in government, and I don't want to be mixed with him. I serve in government as the President Pro Tempore of Liberian Senate. I'm one of the few government officials who were asked to leave government, not because I was corrupt, not because I was inefficient, but because I was advocating for Liberian people, and my way of doing things was different from that of the government of the day. So I don't want the Vice President confusing me and him when it comes to experience. Experience are different, okay? My experience is a good experience that Liberian people need to run this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cummins, can you move to the podium, please?
For the question...
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Is around reducing the recurrent?
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Mr. Cummins, can you move away from the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to come at the question from the other side, meaning the question has been answered in the past as if the budget is static, as if we cannot grow the national budget. One way, and the way we will approach reducing that percentage, is to grow the budget. And the growth in the budget will be used for investment purposes. Yes, there's waste in the budget. I mentioned this earlier. Councillor mentioned the number of cars we buy. I mentioned travel and all the waste, how much we pay per unit of whatever. We have to reduce that. But ultimately, Raymond, we have to take that budget from 550 million to 700 million to $1 billion to $2 billion. And that's how we will reduce the recurrent expenditure. But let me tell you how we'll do it. So it's not just talk. right? We will do it by stimulating the growth in the economy of our country. We will do it by growing the private sector. We will do it by reducing the amount of regulation. We tie our hands. We create rules and laws that we cannot enforce. And we constrain the Liberian people. We constrain Liberian businesses. And we will simplify. I believe by even reducing our tax rates, we'll actually collect more money because we'll make it simpler to apply. There will be less room for corruption. We will also make sure we get the full value from our natural resources. Because again, we got to grow the revenue. There's cost reduction and there's revenue growth. And so we will grow the economic pie. And if you understand the math, by growing that, even if you help recurring expenditure the same, the percentage will go down over time as we take the budget from $600 million to $2 billion. And that's where we'll focus, is expansion, is growth. I want us as Liberians to rethink how we think about ourselves. We should be more expansive in our thinking. You know, we actually shouldn't talk about poverty reduction. We should be talking about wealth creation. We should want to create wealthy Liberians, not less poor Liberians. And this is what Alexander Cummings, Jeremiah Solonte, and an ANC-led government will do. We will create wealthy Liberians, we'll grow the economic pie for all Liberians, and through that process, we will reduce the amount of recurring expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a seat, please. Mr. Ure? Do you want me to repeat the question, sir?
No, it's fine. Recurring expenditures. No matter how one takes it, it's a matter of governance. It's a matter of governance. If we don't have the requisite personnel and structures in government to ensure that this does not occur, it will continue to occur. Look, everywhere in the world, when the process of budgeting begins, you will decide that you will take a percentage of your budget and use it on X, Y, and Z, and another percentage on the other. Even if our budget goes to $1 billion and our recurring expenses continue to grow, it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't, even if we generate more revenue and have a lot of money to spend, and our recurring expenditures continue to go up, it doesn't help. It's no solution. Take, for example, my colleagues mentioned vehicles, purchasing of vehicles and other necessary things to run the government. I will go for a standardization of most of these things to ensure that we cut down costs. Take, for example, rather than minister riding an $80,000 car, he will ride a $20 Hyundai. Rather than having the legislative branch of government having counter development funds where they misuse it, it will go to rural development. And we'll be able to curtail expenditures. And when we project budgets, when we have professionals, people who will look at, after we have to have a development plan for the country and say, look, we expect that in 3 years our country will move from point A to point B. And to do that, we need resources. Yes, our budget will be approximately $600 million. What portion of it will we use to get our country to point B? And that is where planners come into, and they will manipulate the figures and all to ensure that we reach our goal in terms of our national development plan. But the recurring expenditures will be decreased under a Ure and Dopo government. Because if we're going to move forward, we have to cut down a lot of things. It's given that salaries will be cut. It's given that the poor, the average policeman on the street, the teacher will get more income. Because it's inhumane for one person to make $75,000 a year and one can make 10.
Thank you, sir. The Vice President, can you move to the podium, please? Do you want me to repeat your question, sir?
The same question?
Yes, sir.
You know, thank God that people now know how much people make, that they can see the budget, something we never knew before. Thank God to the early Joseph elite government that people know now how much people earn, what wastage is going on. At least we have done well in that direction, because knowing the problem is knowing part of the solution. So we know it, but I can tell you that it doesn't have anything much to do with salaries and all of these, good. But all of that is part of the discipline that we're talking about. Where do you lay the emphasis? Is it on salaries? We have an economy that is not expanding. We have expenditure that is expanding. Don't we need to look at it to see what is happening? Because I told you from start, you talk about $20,000 a car on a road that is as bad as going to Lufa, you will buy 3 of those cars in 1 year. You're not talking about the vehicle. We're talking about you're talking about the cost. We have bad roads. We don't have roads. Our economy had not provided. Thank God. This is the first time in the history of Liberia that Liberians are going home to build bridges. They are going home to build roads because of the provision that were made with the County Development Fund, provision that were made up-country for the people to have access to money. This is first in the history of Liberia. 50 years ago, if that had happened, we would have had roads all over this country. So we need to know where the problem lies. We need to know where to put the money. Recurring, sure. But again, we need to know that if we improve the condition of our road, if we improve the quality of our young people, if we improve the life of our women and children, we will see that all of them will be contributors to the growth and development of this country. Inclusiveness, the main purpose of this government is to look after the people and put in discipline to take care of these people.
Mr. Vice President, a major component of the recurring expenditure that many pundits have pointed to is what they call astronomical salaries. Can you commit, there's been some other commitment to reduction of that, can you commit that if you are elected, you're going to pursue salary reduction for public officials?
Maybe most of you don't know that I, for the first 6 years, got half of my allowance. For the first 6 years. I never complained because many people come to government looking for money to spend. You look for opportunity to serve. I'm not against salary reduction, but let's say one thing. We must always remember that corruption and all of these things, if you have a government that plans for people when they leave job that they can have a future, it's another way of being able to manage the economy. Most of the time people leave, they retire, and they have nothing to look forward to. We need to protect those who are working as well. You're talking about high salary, but let us be assured that there's a future for people when they leave government. The recurring cost of this government, yes, it's high. But it's high because all of the inclusiveness Every party here is making budget. Let's put in discipline that all of us will be committed. I don't care whether I work even for 1/3 of what I earn. That's not a problem. It's not about me. It's about the people of this country.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You may have your seat.
Thank you.
So we are moving on to the next sector. This brings the end of the economy section, so we're moving on to security and rule of law. And my colleague Boyka will get the chance to ask the first question. And we'll be starting with Mr. Ure.
The question reads, on security and rule of law, what specific plans do you have to strengthen the justice sector so that it adequately responds to the high crime rate and the backlog of pre-trial detentions, which has led to overflowing prison populations in the country?
This is a challenge not only for the president and vice president of Liberia, but it's a challenge for every Liberian. We all are cognizant of one thing. Our security sector needs a lot of improvement. And again, we need to tap on the resources of experienced security personnel. Maybe bring them in advisory capacity to Liberia. In our government, we were up for the creation of a Ministry of National Security. A Ministry of National Security. And the reason why the Ministry of National Security, because we don't want the executive branch of government headed by the president and the vice president to actually be too involved in the security matter. Like the NSA reports to the president, or the police reports to the president. Immigration almost reports to the president. If you have a national security, look, the study of the security sector was done by experts many years ago under the administration of President Talbot, one of the most progressive presidents Liberia have had. And they saw the need to amalgamate all the security under one umbrella and call it the Ministry of National Security, where experts will be able to examine security reports and find out that a lot of it is not true, like what we have in Liberia today. A lot of information our president gets, it's not correct. They mislead her, they lie to her, and she in turn take actions that are not correct. And at times we get angry with her, but we've come to realize it's a misinformation and the lack of trained security personnel to evaluate these security reports and come up with decisions. This is what we need in this country, to ensure that these security agencies don't go around lying on people and creating scenes to generate money to put in their pocket. Thank you.
Vice President Borkai, we're going to the same order again, yeah. So.
The same question?
Yeah, the same question.
When you talk about security, we're talking about external security and internal security. We have done well retraining our soldiers and bringing in quality of people. When I think about security, I look at it holistically. That the people have food, do they have access to movement, is there justice? One of the problems here that I always consider as a problem to our security system is unresolved crime. Every time a crime is committed, you never find a criminal. And as long as you can't find a criminal, it means that people will always commit crime. How often do we track down those who commit crime? Everywhere in the world, there's a security rate. There are criminals. But the criminals, even over the years, are brought to bear. We do not respect for human rights. I want to believe that if we improve the quality of education of our people, we improve the quality of life they live and have appreciation for themselves, we are making headlines and moving towards that. But when crimes are committed, and they will be committed, the criminal must be brought to bear. Putting rules together are good, but making sure that you enforce those rules and make them work is what I believe in. And nobody should be protected, no matter who you are. You can't have rules for separate people. The rules must be able to protect the society. They must be able to protect everybody. It's part of what I would believe that we have to institute. A security system that protects all. A security system that will hunt down the criminal and make sure they are arrested and brought to book. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings?
I believe our biggest national security risk is the number of unemployed, underemployed, and unemployable Liberians. I believe if we solve the unemployment problem, the official statistics is that 85% of Liberians are not employed in the formal sector. That is an unsustainable number. And until we fundamentally fix that issue, we will have a security challenge. Yes, we need to strengthen our police force. We need to pay them more. We need to train them. We need to get them the equipment they need. Yes, we need to do the same for our soldiers. Yes, we need to make sure our security apparatus is efficient and operating. But I say to you, my fellow Liberians, unless we address the underlying cause of the insecurity in our country, unless we fix the economy of our country, unless we provide jobs for our young people. Look, if you don't have a job, you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you got nothing to protect, you got nothing to look forward to, you are very vulnerable to any kind of influence. You have nothing to lose. And so trying to fix the apparatus without fixing that fundamental problem will just end up with more people in jail. And that is not the solution. I do agree that there has to be consequences for people who misbehave, but it cannot be consequences for just the petty criminal. It's got to be consequences for the government official who steals, who's a rogue. There's got to be consequences, no matter who you are, for any malfeasance, any misbehavior. But again, I say to you, unless we grow this economy, unless we create jobs for our people, we will not solve the national security problem. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brownskin.
The issue of the rule of law, and I think as to whether or not a particular matter should be prosecuted. It interferes with the justice system and causes a lack of cases. The president of Liberia should be free of that responsibility. I would like to be able to wake up in the morning and read in the newspaper that the chairman of the Liberty Party has been arrested. Okay? Without any restraint, any input from me, that would help to move the justice system forward. We must train our law enforcement officers for them to know that not every probable cause should give rise to a jail sentence. They have to be able to use their own judgment at that level. But as president of Liberia and a lawyer, I look forward to working with the judiciary, the Chief Justice, to make sure that we solve some of those problems that are creating bottlenecks in our justice system. I do agree with Cummings that the underlying thing is the economy. And we have specific plan for moving the Liberian economy forward. You see, what has happened over the last 12 years is that the Sally Barker administration economic policy has been based on the Tubman economic policy, where they completely rely on the export of natural resources, unprocessed, whether semi or final. We will diversify this economy. We will not rely on natural resources as our major source of revenue, so that we'll be able to create opportunity employment for more Liberians. We will create a small business institute that will be used basically to help small and medium-sized Liberians get loans to finance their business operation, create employment not only for themselves, but also for their community at large. I thank you.
Just remain there, Councillor, and take this question. Quite recently, some lawmakers instituted an impeachment proceeding at the House of Representatives against 3 justices of the Supreme Court of Liberia. There are public views that this action by the House of Representatives could affect the peace and security of this country. What are your views, sir?
You asking me as a politician or as a lawyer? Because as a lawyer,
a combination.
As a lawyer, I will charge a fee. No, I'm just kidding.
No, go ahead.
You know, I made a press statement on the issue, and I said, I reassure the Liberian people, nothing those guys do in the legislature will affect peace or the stability of this country, because they're dead wrong. Their action is totally unconstitutional. The Liberian Constitution, Article 65, the first section of the Constitution under the judiciary, when you open it, no branch of government can review the action of the Supreme Court. Can you imagine these guys in the legislature say they want to impeach justices because they disagree with the opinion of the justices? That's not what you do in democracy. That's not what you do in the form of government that we have selected. What you do as a legislature is that if you disagree with the Supreme Court, you pass a new law overriding the Supreme Court's opinion and hope that that law you pass will pass the test of judicial scrutiny. But I say again, the Speaker, the members of the House, they're dead wrong. The action is unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court knows how to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cummings? Do you want a question repeated?
No, it's the same question. Look, there's not too much more to add to what Councillor Bromsky said. You cannot have one branch of government challenging the other branch of government for exercising their constitutional right. The only basis for impeaching Supreme Court justices if you can prove they were corrupt or they stole or whatever violation of the Constitution. But because they exercise their rights as justices in interpreting the law, and you decide you're going to impeach them because of that, this is recipe for chaos. It really is, my fellow Liberians. We should not tolerate this kind of behavior. And so I will say no more. I agree with the councillor's point of view. If you disagree as a legislature with the ruling of the court, change the law. It is their right to interpret that law. They're exercising that right. And there's no basis for anybody trying to impeach them because they disagree with the interpretation of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barker?
The same question?
Sir.
You know, I'm not a lawyer, the courts are protected by law, so are the legislature themselves. We have to know the full reason of which the legislature took the action. Could there have been a preemptive strike? I don't know. But my eminent lawyer had just said it. It's before the House, and some people have been trying to mediate. I cannot render judgment on it at this moment, but I know we have to respect the laws of our country. We have to abide by the laws of our country. The lawmakers are capable people, so are the judiciary. So for me, I wait for the outcome. I'm not a lawyer, as I said. I'm not going to prepare judgment of it. What we want in this country is peace. We want to make sure that all of those who hold offices are living by the laws of this country, that they will not interfere with the other areas that are not within their rights. And maybe that will be the determining factor.
So, sir, you said you are waiting for the outcome. If the outcome goes the way of the House of Representatives, will you support it?
For me, wherever the outcome comes, the law is the law. That's what we're supposed to respect. And that's what we don't want to respect in this country. The House, the representative, the Senate, and the judiciary is before them, and there are eminent citizens that are trying to work through it. We are with that. I can make no judgment on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ure? Do you want a question repeated?
While we must all agree there are three separate, distinct, and independent branches of government, and one cannot interfere in the actions of the other. Also, while I agree that the case spoken about by my colleagues here, one branch of government does not have the right to challenge that of another. But when one branch of government decides that they will interfere in the duties of another, then it becomes questionable. The Supreme Court was actually making a law. There's nowhere in the law that they said it was a law of the land, that they call for an evaluation of the gravity of the crime. The thing here is, I gave you it in simple terms. You 18 years old to become a citizen. The law states that you must resign 2 years prior to running for an elected post. They didn't say they would determine whether or not the crime was too egregious or not. Where did that come from? You either qualify or you don't qualify. You either a citizen or not. This is in simple terms. So even though they might have stepped in the prerogative of another branch of government, that other branch also stepped in their prerogative. Look, my people, it shows that we need to wake up in this country as Liberians. Some of these people we have representing us should not be representing us at all branches of government. Thank you.
Sir, just a follow-up. I just wanted to be clear about what you're saying. So basically you're saying that the Supreme Court overstepped its bounds, and that gave the House of Representatives the right to opt for impeachment.
Not the right, but that caused it.
that caused it.
Yeah.
So they were acting in a proper manner. Members of the House of Representatives.
I didn't say that. I'm saying both branches were in error.
Oh, okay. So what's the solution then?
Well, you know, the solution is going forward. You know, too often do we in Liberia say in the interest of peace. Everything now. People will commit crime. Then when you look, you will see the council of churches coming. In the interest of peace, let's leave it. The other person do this thing. The traditional council come. In the interest of peace. Everything in the interest of peace in this country. We need to go in the interest of the country. Laws and order.
Thank you, Mr. Ure. So we'll now have the final question on the security and the rule of law. Mr. Cummings, could you please go to the podium? Okay. And the question is, what specific plans do you have to protect women and girls from sexual violence, considering that many of the perpetrators of sex crimes do not serve a day in jail, and most victims rarely get justice?
The first, can we have one conversation, please? Thank you. Maureen, the first thing I would say is that sexual violence against our women is completely unacceptable. And we as a country, we as Liberians, including the leadership of our country, should make that very clear to all Liberians that this behavior is unacceptable, that we will prosecute anybody at any level in society who commits those crimes, will enforce the laws of our country. But even on a more positive note, we will commit that in a coming Sulante-led government, 30 to 40 or as much as 50% of our leaders will be women. Because when you have women at the table, when you have women at the seat of government, they will influence the interpretations of the law, the execution of the law, and they will make sure, because they are victims, that they hold us accountable to enforcing the laws of our country. So in a government led by Alex Cummings, we will respect our women. We will give them the proper place at the table, but most importantly, we will enforce the laws of the land and prosecute anybody who violates somebody of the opposite sex.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Bromskin, would you please go to the podium? Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you.
Let's start with the young girls and the classroom. It's become prevalent in this country where young girls are taken advantage of by school teachers and professors. A Bromskin-led government will criminalize such action, whether or not the student is of age to give consent. If you're teaching a girl, there is no place, no room for you to go out with her. If you went out with her, you go to jail. Finish. The lesson will be well taught in this country. With regards to women and rape, the law is on the book. What it takes now is the enforcement of the law. As a lawyer, I commit to the people of Liberia, especially to the women, that we will enforce the law. I'm concerned about the rights of women because 3 of the people who I love the most happen to be women. My late mother, my wife Estelle, who's sitting down there, 42 years she tolerated me. I just want to say that I love you so dearly, Mommy. You know? And my daughter Charlene, who has shown to be a much better politician than I am. But these three women have shaped my life in many ways. And the least I can do is to show to every woman in this country that I have your back. I have your back.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President Boyka. Do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
Please.
What specific plans do you have to protect women and girls from sexual violence, considering that many of the perpetrators who commit these crimes don't serve a day in jail, and most victims rarely get justice in our system?
I've had the opportunity to talk with the judges of the court that have the responsibility to fight those. They have their problems, and I'm telling you the same thing about unresolved crime. I've said of the police quite often that the badges that the police wear are not hunting license. We also in government have to know, and I've said it often, even at cabinet, that we probably have a government, sometimes we pretend to pay and the people pretend to work. It must be people that are trained, people that are honest and love this country to administer security. I agree with my counterpart who say nobody should be protected. The dignity of our women must be protected. I have worked with women in many, many categories. But the court are flooded with these cases that people cannot prove. And once you can prove those cases, you might have somebody behind the bar who is innocent. So we must be able to have people both at the court, the police who have the information to be able to make sure that those that committed a crime are the right people behind the bar. The other thing is also to improve the dignity of our girls by helping to give them education and something to do, because people's protection must start with themselves too. If they know what to do to protect themselves, and they know where to be at a certain point in time. I'm not saying that some of them are violated but it works hand in hand. The law enforcement side, the court side, so that you make sure that those that are apprehended are prosecuted, but they too must know that somebody is not going to say this person did it, because all of us must be protected. Thank you.
No, it's fine. I am not a believer in reverse discrimination. So I want to mention here that also men are also raped, sexually harassed, and molested in Liberia. So we must open it all up and not only limit it to female. The thing here, and I want the female to know that I have 5 female, 4 mancho, 4 girls, and 1 wife. And they're all my heroes. I love them from the bottom of my heart to the rest of my body. But I know them. They also believe in justice. Justice delayed and justice denied we must never tolerate in this country. Go to the central prison. People there live like animals. If any mother goes to that prison, she will weep. She will weep. My people, it's beyond imagination. And we must fix it. We must fix it. We must, first of all, create legislation that will ensure that there is a fast-track court for rape. What we have now is not functional. You got people running around in air-conditioned cars and making noise, justifying their salaries. Departments in the Ministry of Justice and other institutions, some of them financed by the international community. Let's take all this money and put it in a fast-track court on rape, where people can go and get justice. In addition to that, the department in the police that is involved in that, we need to get trained personnel to handle it, because no one wants to see their child or their relative being raped, whether it's a man or woman. It is bad. And a civilized society will frown on it. And I expect that Liberia, and I know that Liberia frowns on it. But we must put the resources toward the right thing. And I believe a fast-track court exclusively for rape will go a long way in solving that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ure. We now move to the next sector, under peace and reconciliation. And we ask Councillor Bromston to move to the podium, please. Are you ready, sir? The findings of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission have been lingering for about 8 years now. Do you have any suggestions for implementing those recommendations? And how?
Before I answer that question, I want to go back to the earlier questions, because listening to some of the responses after me, I want to make sure that we all understand a woman who is raped or a girl who is abused can never be considered as a culprit. She is always a victim. And the law and the justice system must recognize that. We must even put in our school now educators who will train our young girls to let them know that there is nothing wrong with them complaining when their teacher touches them places that they should not be touched. I just want to make that point. Now let's come to peace and reconciliation. My understanding of the report is that it took two parallel approaches, one retributive and the other restorative justice. Retributive justice, it's been a long time. 8 years, as you said. My challenge as the president of this country is to reconcile our people, rebuild our country, and move this country forward. Do not mistake that to mean that I would tolerate impunity. There is no statute of limitation on felonies. So people may be grabbed later on. But for now, I think it's more important that we adopt the Palawa Hut approach, where perpetrators are shamed and victims are made whole again. Now, there can always be a hybrid of the situation, where you invite everyone who participated in the war to come to the Palawa Hut, and where they're shamed and the victim is made whole. If they refuse to come, then you can put the criminal justice machinery into motion. Have them arrested, have them prosecuted. You may not even have to wait for a war crime court. But one thing I am certain of, there should be no impunity. No one should get away with the crimes that he or she have committed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cummings? Same question. Do you want to repeat it?
No.
Thank you.
Let me start answering that question by saying that, you know, we can't, no human being can do anything about yesterday or even an hour ago. We can only influence the moment now and the future. And I believe we as Liberians should focus on a reconciled future. Yes, we have to acknowledge the pain and the hurt caused in our country. We should not tolerate impunity. But I believe if we focus on the retributive portions of that report, it will consume us. It will divide us. It will have us looking backward instead of forward. So I want to convene a national conference of Liberians to once and for all address this issue of reconciliation. I want us to look at our national symbols. I want us to acknowledge the pain and hurt. I want us to build monuments where it is appropriate and makes sense. But I want us to look forward. I also believe, and I keep coming back to this economy, and I'm becoming a broken record, and I refer to this as this bowl of rice we all eat from. If we grow this bowl of rice, and every Liberian believes they can put their hand or their spoon and have access to it, it will help in the reconciliation process. It will help move us forward, move us ahead. When you have a shrinking economic pie, everybody looks after themselves. Then maybe they look after their family. Then maybe they look after their tribe and their community. But if we're expanding this economic pie and everybody has access, it will begin to fundamentally address reconciliation. But again, I emphasize, I'm for looking at a positive future for our people, for our country. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about the past. And I don't want us as a country, as a people, to get consumed because I believe it will be more divisive. So let's come together. Let's have a conference. Let's acknowledge the pain and the hurt. Let's ensure that this never happens again, that there's no more impunity for any kind of killing or malfeasance. But let's look forward, my fellow Liberians. Let's look ahead. And I think that's how we'll move Liberia forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Vice President. Do you want a question repeated, sir?
You know, the Liberians are peaceful people, and all of us know the dividend that peace paid over the years. When the TRC started, I'd always wanted to see the South African approach. And you know very well the Palawa Hut. We've used that, and we need to do that. But I also believe that people must not just speak peace, they must see you moving in that direction, practicing our conduct in government, the way we behave to one another, the removal of impunity. I also believe that people talk about reconciliation. I have a stronger belief that once we open up our country, we create jobs, people move freely, you don't have to be putting people under the power. It's good, but you demonstrate that, give the people opportunity, let them move out, let them build the economy, let them see that their lives, that they are part of the rebuilding of this country. Let Liberians begin to see themselves doing businesses. The hurt is there. That hurt will go over a period with policies that will improve the people's lives. You can put the people under the Palawa 10 years. It might just make a small difference. but let our conduct to see that the lives of people have been touched. I believe in the South African version, where we make sure that the court system is not what I would just recommend, but most people, if you go up country, you hear the feeling of people, they want to enjoy the peace now, they want to see their life transformed. We should speed up to give them that which make them see themselves as part of this country. Their children going to school, they have better health centers. And you will see gradually their life will improve and they will begin to build the peace. It doesn't take me to do it. It takes the policy that we put in place to better their lives.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can we ask the security out there, please? The noise is infiltrating here. Can they please ask them to move away? Mr. Ure? Same question.
The TRC, not only the report, but the whole process continues to hunt us as a people. And the reason why is because we didn't do it right. And we were not patriotic. And we were not genuine in the whole process. We had actors in our Civil War who actually were members of the TRC. We had actors in our Civil War who appeared before the TRC and admitted to the crime and boasted about it and said that they have no regret and we didn't have the system to go after them judicially. Where does it leave us as a people? We have perpetrators of atrocity and all because they manipulated the system. In fact, they've been manipulating our democracy for decades, and they continue to manipulate it. None of them were recognized in that TRC for the ills they did to our society. They're free today. Under a Euro-Dopo-led government, we are prepared to go, be the first to enter war crime tribunal, to exonerate ourselves and anybody else that relates to us. But we must revisit the TRC. It must be revisited. Or we must just squash it. It must be revisited, and the people we in Liberia who've been living here, not people who just came, we know who did what in this country. And for them to be free, we say it's wrong. They always sit behind pushings and get away with it. And that's what they did with the TRC. They put all the people on the TRC to ensure that they are protected. So everybody that participated in the war must get the day in court. Finally, my people, on reconciliation, the TRC and all, I want to tell you all here today that the ALP, the All Liberian Party, has what we call the 15 months things we must do for the Liberian people. And the first one of those is that we must reconcile and unite our country. The first of it, we have recognized that the most important thing in our country is reconciliation and unity. And in between, we must provide safe drinking water, electricity, jobs, and all of that. But the last must of the ALP is that we must love one another. And it's that love that surpasses all understanding. It's the love for Liberia that brings us here today.
The last question on peace and reconciliation, and we begin with Mr. Cummins. Yeah. Reese, during the Civil War, we lost thousands because of ethnicity. We thought we had moved past that during the post-conflict era. But during these campaigns, the old Congo native divide was reignited. There have even been advocacy for the declaration of Liberia as a Christian state. Would you clearly condemn tribal and religious bigotry? What are your plans to heal the divide that could threaten the peace that we currently enjoy?
Thank you, Boykai. You know, I would say it's been very disappointing to hear Liberians advocate this divisiveness, this divisive politics. I say to my fellow Liberians that joblessness, hunger, lack of healthcare facilities does not distinguish between Grebo, Gio, Kru, Congo. It affects all Liberians. I want to be president of all Liberians. I want to be president of Christian Liberians. I want to be president of Muslim Liberians. I want to be president of Liberians who practice their local religion. We should all deplore, given our recent history, anybody who propounds, who proposes that we think about ourselves along these divisive lines. But I say to you again, the fundamental way that we get at solving that issue is not only should we take on people who propose it, but if we're growing this bowl of rice, if we're growing this national economy, if people have jobs, if people can feed themselves, they will care less about the differences. And we can focus more on our commonality as a people, as a country. We can work better together if all of our stomachs are full, as opposed to only a few people who go to bed with their stomachs full every night. But I say unequivocally that it's extremely disheartening, extremely disappointing for those people who advocate this point of view. We as leaders should be talking about bringing ourselves together. We as leaders should be looking for solutions for all Liberians, not for any one group of Liberians. And shame on those who advocate that point of view. And we all, and I hope all my colleagues here, are advocating to be president of all Liberians and not of any one sector, religion, tribe, but of all Liberians. And this is what a coming Solontel-led administration will advocate on behalf of our people. Thank you.
Vice President Boykai.
I think you listen to the jingle, it tells you how I feel. I don't feel inferior to anybody, so it doesn't matter who you are. We want all Liberians with equal opportunity to contest for positions in government and elsewhere. And so I do not preach tribalism. I have gone to school with every one of these people. We all live together. So for me, tribalism is not part of my blood. And I have friends from all over. You talk about the issue of tribalism being preached. For us, we have already committed ourselves to an inclusive government, an inclusive approach to all issues that have to do with Liberia, because I don't believe in a divide and rule. Now, over the period, you've listened to statements from people. We make sure that we guide our people to understand that this Liberia is for all, and that all of us can live in peace, but we have to practice what we preach so that we can be seen as Liberians together. The other point,
to declare Liberia a Christian state.
Now, I think I'm on record to say that if you want to be seen as a good Christian, practice it. Live the Christ-like and be able to win people. Putting a tattoo on your back doesn't make you a Christian. We want people to demonstrate. I like to see the Christian living a life in government, in what they do, that will attract other people to say that religion is good, let me be with it. It's not going to tattoo yourself. So I don't believe in a country calling itself particularly a Christian state. Live the Christian life as Jesus lived to inspire people to make them move towards you. That's what I believe in. Thank you.
I'm going to endeavor to be as candid on this matter, as candid as possible. The issue of tribalism. I think most of us here today are referring to a poster that appeared on the internet with Vice President Boka and Ukwe calling it the indigenous ticket. But my people, we must be realistic. It is an indigenous ticket. But I can say one thing, that all my life I've known Joe Boyka, the Vice President of Liberia, and he has given me no reason to believe that he's a tribalist. Also, I've known Emmanuel Nokwe. In fact, he's a Presbyterian as I am a Presbyterian. We're from the same church. And his father was a Presbyterian preacher. He went to school with my little brother, Tody Mission. But my people, we must be cognizant of one thing. It's campaign. People would do anything to win. I gave you another example. I also, if I stand here to you today and tell you I'm indigenous, you might not believe it, but it is the fact. My mother is a native woman, my father, a Congo man. But not only my mother, my mothers, because I had 3 mothers. Now, let's go to the religious aspect of it. Religiously, we say we'll all be surprised. We're all surprised that anyone would come up with that foolishness at this point in time in our lives. Talking about Liberia being removed from a secular state to a Christian state. But let's face it, we will expect that all our Islamic brothers will be against it, but the people who have perpetuated that, they're supporting them in this whole electoral process. So it shows that it's a mix-up thing. We will expect that all our Islamic brothers will be fighting. It will almost be a sin to Islam to support somebody who says that Liberia should be a Christian state, but we see them supporting them. So we're confused. But we must conclude by saying, for the good of the country, we must move forward and leave the ills behind.
Yeah. It is a shame for us as a people that every election cycle, the issue of countryman, Congo man, raises its ugly head. But then what we know is that right after election, those who get elected because they advocate the divide, they immediately become Morovia people. hardly ever returning to seek the interests of those who they exploit during election time? Are there remnants of history that need to be resolved? Certainly, there are. As your president, one of the first things we will do is to have a commission of experts from each of the ethnic groups in this country appointed so that we can be able to trace the contribution of every ethnic group in this country. It must be a terrible thing for a bastard child to grow up not knowing that Chief Bob Gray was referred to as by the settlers as the education chief, because he caused the settlers to sign a document with him that the bastard children would be educated in exchange for giving land. Such of history is missing. We must move away from where history is told only of settlers. And as we go forward in reconciling this country, each of us will know that our ethnic group also contributed to what Liberia is today. That will be the beginning of removing this stumbling block, this tool that is used to exploit the unwary Liberian electorate. I intend to do that, and that is a promise to the people of Liberia.
All right, thank you. We now go to another sector, anti-corruption. And we invite the Vice President to move to the podium, please. Mr. Bokai, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf has said that her government that you are part of has fallen short in the fight against corruption, even though when she assumed power, she said corruption would have been public enemy number one. If you succeed her, how do you plan to address this threat?
Well, you know, when President Sirleaf said that, she did not say efforts were not made. You know, I believe that people talk about vice president. I myself, I have worked in areas where I have operated in a way that I manage corporations. The first thing I believe in, measures can be put in place. For example, you take our public corporations. Public corporations are owned by the public. They are supposed to publish their report annually because the public is a shareholder. I know that you live by example. I know that over the years I've served, I've distinguished myself as somebody who is against corruption. So, yes, it is a process, but again, measures can be put in place. A system has to be enforcement. Those people that are caught corrupt should be dealt with, and whatever they benefited from should be retrieved. You cannot leave them benefiting from the ill-gotten wealth. So I believe in the enforcement of the laws. I believe in a system in place that will be able to monitor and to forestall corruption and to be able to get rid of corrupt practices. those officials that are corrupt, there's no compromise for them. They should be out of government. I have done it before, and I'm an example myself. So it's not talking about it, it's acting in the interest of the country.
Vice President Barker, you think, talking about enforcement of the sanctions, you think there hasn't been sufficient enforcement of the sanctions for those that are deemed corrupt?
I think you know very well that there are systems. There's a rule of law, there are procedures. How those procedures in the court system and all of these work for those systems, all of those got to understand that our country is where it is because of corrupt practice, and nobody that is benefiting from it. So, enforcement, making sure that the system we put in place works, is the duty of all Liberians. Those people who gave, those people who received must be exposed. And I think if we put a system in place that does not pick and choose, separate, deal with special interests, we will see that we'll set an example that will work for all the Liberians.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You can have the seat. Mr. Ure? Same question. Do you want to repeat it, sir?
Corruption. You know, 1980, President Samuel Kayando executed 13 persons on the pool for rampant corruption. I wonder what he would do if he were in Liberia today. He would probably execute 1,000. But we believe that President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, when she came to power, she really had a desire to fight corruption. She set up all the agencies. In some instances, she even refused to have people even being on her inaugural team because of their involvement in corruption. We believe she actually had the desire to fight corruption. But what has happened? What happened over the years? My people, this is a cancer within us. And if we do not treat it radically,